Hello and thanks for joining your Girl Cooking with Steph. I am getting ready to show you a family recipe for the best pot of homemade chili beans you will ever want to have. It's getting cold, so we want to have some warm pots going on the stove, ladies. I am going to start off by sauteing my vegetables. I am using some bacon grease for that. I have here my smoked ham hocks, which have unthawed. My smoked turkey necks, which have unthawed. My pinto beans, which have been soaked overnight. That grease is hot when you put the fan on because that detector is super sensitive and she will go off. That is my onion, my fresh garlic. My smoked turkey neck. Slightly rinsed those. We do not want to disturb the smokiness. So I'm going to rinse those lightly and put those over there with my smoked ham hocks. I'm going to run some water. As you can see, these beans have doubled in size from being soaked. If you haven't seen the video from beginning to now, go back and watch the other video and you will see that these beans have increased in size 3 times the size they were when I first put them in that bowl to cook. Follow the easy steps. I have here my onion and my garlic sauteing, and I will be putting my smoked meat in that pot to marinate and cook. Yes, I am cooking those first. Why? Because they take the longest to cook. It's going to take this smoked meat between 3 to 4 hours to fully cook and become tender. You're not going to allow the meat to cook all the way. Halfway through, an hour or less through, you will then add your beans. So as you can see, what I have left here are my meats to add to the pot. I will be adding 5 pounds of ground beef in this chili brick. Being that it's going to take 3 to 4 hours for my meat to be prepared and ready, I'm not adding the other ingredients. Those sauteed onions and garlic, I'm adding my smoked meat on top. I am going to season these smoked ham hocks and smoked turkey necks with some smoked paprika Paprika is also a tenderizer and a browner. Fresh garlic powder. Onion powder. Chili powder. Because remember, we're building our pot for chili beans. And you cannot make chili beans without chili powder. Pepper. We're going to put the top on that and allow that to sweat. That sizzle you hear is what you want. We're going to allow that to braise. The next step will be to add in the chili beans. I want to allow you to get into this pot so that you can see what you want your pot to look like as you're starting off your beans. That's your smoked meat, your fresh onion, your fresh garlic. At this time, you are going to go ahead on now and add your water. You want to cover that pot. You want that meat to cover. That meat is braising at the bottom. If you can get into this pot, you will be able to see exactly what braising is. And this is braising. That's what your meat looks like on the opposite side when you're braising it. Being that I'm not completely done with braising it to my satisfaction, I'm going to go ahead on and add my water. That's 1 bottle of water. Keep count. Because at this point, I'm going to go ahead on and bring my fire up to its highest level. And just keep your eye on that pot. That is part of the braising process. Keep your eye on that pot. That flavor that's on that spoon, I want all of that off. A quick recap on the flavors that I added to that pot. Garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, smoked paprika. Why smoked paprika? What are the two benefits? In any meat, a tenderizer, a browner. That pot is at a raging boil. That is the boil that you want. All those flavors are now at this time boiling into your smoked meats. You want to go ahead now and cover your meats in this pot. However many bottles or cups it takes to cover your meat, that's what you want. Excuse the alarm. That lets you know there's some cooking going on. I'm going to go ahead on and cover this top and allow this to cook for 3 to 4 hours. When this pot resumes a raging boil, I will then at that time turn this pot down to a 3 to 4. At this point in time, it is at its highest level still. Why? Because I want this pot to come to a raging boil. To keep it safe, when you have covered that pot with your smoked meats with water, you always want to add an extra cup or bottle of water. Why? Because when this becomes to a raging boil, it absorbs most of the water. Yes, my alarms are sensitive. They let me know exactly what's going on around here. So we know that this is cooking till it comes to a raging boil for 3 to 5 hours or less. And I'll be back. When this pot becomes to a raging boil, we will then reduce it to a 3 to 4 to allow the smoked meat to cook and become tender. And then we will add our pinto beef. And I'll be back. When this pot becomes to a raging boil, we are going to bring it down to a 3 to a 4. Before I add the beans, I will bring you back. Thanks for joining the Girl Cooking with Steph over here. These beans are ready. This meat is unthawing. It's ready. I have my ground beef already unthawed and ready. Being that this pot still has to cook, I'm keeping my meat in the refrigerator. And when it's time, I will then add my ground beef. The oven is not on. detectors. We work through detectors. We work through alarms. We ensure that everyone is okay, that the environment and space is okay, and we move forward. Period. I am going to turn you off over here because we have went through 1, 2, and 3 steps. And when it is time to add the meat to the pot, I will bring you back with me. I'm going to remove that top. Until she comes to a boil. And at that time, I will show you exactly where you want to cap it off and bring it down to a 3 to 4. That water has came to a boil. At this point in time, I will also be adding a cap of chicken bouillon. Ebola chicken bouillon. I am reducing this fire. We want to stir that in very well. At this point in time, that has everything in it that it needs to boil, and I am going to reduce it, bring that fire down. It's at a 3. At this point, I am also going to add some bay leaf. Being that when I stir, I can see my meat after I stir for the first time. And that's not what I want. I do not want to be able to see my meat, so I'm going to add more water. That way, we are ensured that we have enough water to cook these smoked ham hocks, these smoked turkey wings, and then add in the beans. So at this point, you're going to have to go ahead and bring your fire back up to a brisk and boil. Because why? We added more water. The only dry ingredient that I have left to add to the pot is the flavor for the chili beans. If you cannot find a burrito mix, you can also use a taco mix. Since I couldn't find a burrito mix, I'm going with a taco mix flavor. I will not be adding it to the pot at this time because right now we're smoking the flavors out of this meat. And we don't want anything to cloud the taste. So we're going to allow this to do its own thing. When I come to a brisk, to a boil, I will then cut the fire down to a 3 to a 4. Still hasn't reached a raising boil that you want. You know that it's getting to that point because you see the corners of the pot boiling. But what you want to look for, and what I mean by a raging boil, is when it's boiling from the bottom up. Don't touch it while it's in that process. Allow those flavors to come up to the top. It's getting there. It's extremely close. Don't touch it until it's boiling from the bottom up. At that time is when you will then give it a good stir and reduce your fire. You see that middle is juggling, it's raising, it's boiling from the bottom, from the middle. That is what you want. It's boiling from the middle, from the bottom. We're going to give it a good slight stir, mixing in all those flavors. We are now going to go ahead on and reduce that fire. Because if you put the top on without reducing that fire, you will quickly see that you're going to get a boil over. So that's the reason why I say when you put the top on, reduce your fire. You will see how quickly you will get a boil up. That pot will boil over, or your flavors will boil over. As you can see, it's rising to the top very quickly. So what you want to do is you want to reduce that fire to a simmer. and allow those flavors to then cook into your meat. At this point, it's set. You leave it 2.5 hours. You're going to come back and have a look at it, possibly give it a stir, possibly check in between those 2.5 hours to make sure that the water has not absorbed into the meat. If it has, you can always add you some more water in. If you notice, I put my tea kettle on so that the water will be hot if I need to add some more water. That tea kettle is on and the water will be hot in the same temperature. When you add lukewarm or cold water, it reduces the cook time to bring it back to that level. So when you have your tea kettle going, you have water that's hot at the same level. And right now, this is cooking. And this is the beginning start of a pot for some homemade chili beans. Thanks for joining your Girl Cooking with Steph. We will be back when those smoked meats are cooked, and I will show you at what point you want to add your beans. That fire is reduced, and she's cooking.